now recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Meuser, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all very much. I think it goes without saying, and it's undeniable, we have a border crisis. 144,000 illegals were apprehended in May alone. Of course, we don't know how many were not apprehended. Yet at the same time, no one denies, or at least I don't think they should, that we are a proud nation of immigrants. The president and the Republicans here in Washington are trying. We now have engaged Mexico's help in controlling the border and their borders. I do believe we follow a wide gates, high fences concept, so as we have orderly, known entry into our country, and we do our very best to keep drugs and criminals from entering our country. We have spent a lot of money on expanding judges for asylum adjudication, and we are spending billions for care and trying to expand detention centers appropriately. On the other hand, I think we have the Democrat side is provided no funding and has no interest in border security. They've passed an amnesty bill in the House. They have a bill now that basically will institutionalize the idea of catch and release, where 80 to 85% do not show up again, and no money for law enforcement, ICE or border security. So that's the situation here. Mayor, I'd like to talk about Yuma. Human trafficking. You touched on that a little while ago. You said it's certainly, one poor person being humanly trafficked in that manner unwillingly is a tragedy. Could you speak on that briefly?
It has thank you, Congressman. It has a lot to do with providing for the humanitarian aid. I've been accused of taking really strong positions one way or the other, but at the end of the day, when people arrive in the community, that's my concern, is the humanitarian concern for them and the public safety. So human trafficking shows up in a lot of different ways. To me, it shows up in recycling children so that people can cross the border, and whether or not they claim asylum, because right now only 7% of migrant families that come through the Yuma sector actually claim asylum. But as long as they have that minor with them, they're able to enter the same process to see a judge and to wait in country. So to me, that child, if it's not a family member, is part of that trafficking issue. And then the trafficking starts in Mexico. I've talked to several officials there where they track it, but they don't have enough. The problem with trafficking is it moves across too many borders. So there's not enough continuity in the local governments in order to have an impact. It's really a federal level issue to try to get our hands around that.
All right. I hope to hear from you ideas on trying to correct this terrible situation.
I have a few.
Great. All right.
Thank you.
Costs to your budget, to your city. Unsustainable, manageable?
As a community, it's very unsustainable. Our city right now, we don't have a line item for migrant support, so we don't actually have dollars. But our community has experienced over $1.5 million in the last 3 months worth of impact for the different elements that it takes in order to support that effort. Right now, this is the part of the year where our nonprofits are already stretched in trying to serve our homeless veterans, the different elements of the community that need the support. Temperature's hotter, there's less work. And now that our nonprofits, or some of them are diverted to providing for the migrant families as they come through. So there's a real impact from a community level of just under $500,000, $1.5 million since the beginning of the year.
What about schools? How are your schools doing?
The schools right now, because the migrant families are moving through and they don't stay, we don't have that dramatic of an impact. There is a constant presence just being close to Mexico, but there's no dramatic impact right now in the school system.
So housing as well, housing?
Housing, it really has to do that temporary housing and moving through the families. Our shelter has gone over capacity 4 times in the last 3 months. It's just not a sustainable situation where we can continue to bring people in because the numbers continue to grow.
Lastly, the farms. You mentioned how this is disrupting the ability for them to come in and do the work they've traditionally provided.
Right. So there we have a lot of the labor comes legally through the port of entry. Well, because we've removed resources in order to support the family migrants that have come through, the wait times are getting dramatically longer. As we enter into the winter season where we have the 15,000 people, 15,000 workers coming through a day, they're going to be waiting in line an extra hour to hour and a half just across the border because the resources aren't allocated where they need to be for the legal part of the migration process every day.
The
Thank you,
gentleman's
Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you. The